G'day YouTube, Quacker John here. Today I have Alan with me to discuss the tyres for the Vulcan S. G'day Alan.
G'day John.
Alan is a subscriber of the channel, a regular on live stream and a regular in the chat videos on my channel. Alan lives in Michigan, USA and I'm in Brisbane, Australia. Okay Alan. Why are the tyres so important when riding a motorbike?
You know, that's kind of a funny question. And you and I talked about this a little bit, and I had to chuckle when you asked me. But then I got to thinking about it, and I thought, you know, there's more to that question than meets the eye. So what I did is I did it from a, if you will, it's not scientific, but I did it from a calculation standpoint, where what I did is I took some wedges, just like this. Let me get these in my hand here. They look like this. They're just simple little wedges that anybody can purchase at the store. And what I did was I took the wedges and I stuck them in. I took the bike, put it on a vertical, so it's straight up and down, and then stuck the wedges in to either side. So it was right to where the tire contacted the ground. And then I took the wedges and moved them two more with those in at a T angle like that. So I had two of these T angled pieces. And then I measured the distance in between. So when I did that, the surprising thing was the actual contact patch of the rear tire on the Vulcan X was like about, you can measure the width on the tire at about 2.5 inches or thereabouts, roughly 65 millimeters. On the overall length of that contact patch, it was only like 4 3/4 inches, about 120 millimeters or thereabouts. So not very much in total. And if you do the front, it's about 1.5 inches in width, but again, about the same 4 3/4 inches in length. And so it doesn't, you know, seem like a lot. I was surprised that the front and back had the same length of contact, but that's all that's in contact with the ground, with Mother Earth. And so if you think about it, you riding on the motorcycle, you have 5 points of contact. Your hands on the handlebars, your feet on the pegs, and you're sitting on the bike. The bike only has 2 points of contact. And in total, those 2 points of contact's only about 19 square inches in total. And as you can see from those pictures, it's pretty minimal. And that's all you're riding on. And so when you wonder why people lose control or people slide out or can't brake in time, some of that is that kind of tire contact point. And if you compare that to a car tire, for example, which I did, my truck tire is 8 inches across and 7 inches in length, 56 square inches on one tire. So that's 3 times, one tire on a car is 3 times the contact point of your motorcycle. And your car has 4 of those tires. Now I understand that cars weigh 10 times more than your motorcycle, but again, that contact patch of those tires on the motorcycles pretty small when you think that you're doing 60, 70, 80 miles an hour down the highway, and that's all that's keeping you from falling over is those patches. So when you're accelerating, when you're braking, when you're cornering, just be aware that the contact patch is very, very important, and that's why it's important for you to understand the whole deal with the tires on a motorcycle.
Thanks, Alan. What are the size of the tires on the Vulcan S, the stock tires, and what tire pressure should they be?
Well, the size of the tires, I got some notes here. That's what I'm going to be looking down a little bit, but the actual tire sizes, it's in your owner's manual as well. But on the Vulcan S, the front tire is a 120, 70 by 18, meaning that's 120 millimeters across. It's got an aspect ratio of 70%, which means from the rim down to the ground, and an 18-inch diameter rim. That's the front. 120, 70, 18 in the front. On the back, it's a 160, 60, 17. So that's 160 millimeters across, a 60% aspect ratio, and a 17-inch rim. Those are basically the stock tires. And Kawasaki recommends with the stock tires, which are Dunlop Sport Max D220Fs, STs I think is what they are, that you run 32 PSI in the front, 36 in the back. And they're speed rated at about 130 miles an hour, which is an H rating. The weight rating is like 59 in the front and 69. We'll talk about that in a little bit in the back. That relates to how much each tire can carry with weight. So those are the tire pressures. Those are the sizes. And when you're switching or buying new tires, my recommendation is you stay with the stock size, only because that's what gives you the best geometry. It's what Kawasaki engineers have decided. That's the best geometry between front and back. Can you go bigger? Yeah, people have, but that changes that geometry. You lose clearance between the fenders and the swing arms and the forks. So, can you put like an 18 or a 19 or 21-inch tire in the front? Yeah, but there's a lot of things that are going to change. So staying with the stock is the way to go.
So, excuse me, Alan, what tires come with the bike? Who is the manufacturer, and what type of tire are they?
Yeah, I mentioned that. That's Dunlop. They call them what were they? Sport Max D as in dog 220F STs. That's what they call them now. The rear are 220Gs. I don't know why the designation difference there, but they're Dunlop tires. They're Sports Max. Obviously, Kawasaki buys millions of them, and that might explain why, if you go look for those stock tires anywhere on the web or any place else, you can buy them, but they're more expensive than Pirelli's, Michelin's, Continental. I don't know why that is. Dunlop actually offers other tires that are cheaper than the stock tires. So once your stock tires wear out on the Vulcan S, you're probably going to go with some kind of aftermarket tire.
So what are the different types of tires that you can put on the Vulcan S, and which tire would you recommend for the Vulcan S?
Yes. This is a real personal type of question. There are so many different types. I'll name just a few. Pirelli, Michelin, Continental, Metzler's, Bridgestone's, Shinko's, Dunlop's, Avon's. There are so many different manufacturers of tires out there, and everybody has their own personal opinion on them, likes and dislikes. Maybe you had good experiences with a certain kind or type, maybe you didn't. Obviously, people have friends that ride motorcycles, and so they have personal preferences one way or the other. The dealers may only sell certain brands. There's just a whole lot of different things. But really what it's going to boil down to is if there's a particular manufacturer that you feel more comfortable with, you're probably going to lean that way. If you've seen good reviews on those tires for the handling, the cornering, the mileage that you might get, that's going to determine that. But I think ultimately, when it comes down to the bottom line, it's going to come down to cost. You're going to make some trade-offs one way or the other. But that is why when I went looking for a new set of tires, or I was thinking about a new set, and I'll give you my reason here in a minute, but I was kind of leaning to Pirelli or maybe Michelin. Those were the two, and those seem to be predominantly the ones that people recommend in the forums and on reviews and everything else, Michelin and Pirelli's for the Vulcan S. So what really kicked it over was two things. One, you, John, mentioned to me that you had Pirellis years ago on your OKZ. That was a great, you advocated for the Pirellis. I like that a lot. I respect your opinion, so I was looking at the Pirellis. And the second thing is I was able to get a set of Angel GTs, just the Angel GTs, for a really good price, under $300. So that sold the deal. The Pirellis work. They have a good name, brand recognition. A lot of people like the GTs. Now, it's an older tire. It was first brought out, I think, in 2013. They now come out with an Angel GT2. And the problem with that, in my opinion, just my opinion, is that if you look at the GT2s, they have a groove around each of the tires, front to back. If you look at the stock GTs, they do not. No grooves, no whatever. The GTs have this groove that they put in for water siping. And the reason I'm changing from the stock tires, the Dunlops, to the Pirellis is because I think when I go down the highway, when I usually ride on the back roads and they're all asphalt, you know, the tires track well, the stock tires, the Dunlops track well, they ride well, everything's good. It wasn't until I got onto some concrete highway where there's actual rain grooves cut into the concrete, and they do that for watering and water siping and stuff too. But those concrete grooves seemed to me on the stock tires to give me a little bit of a wobble at the steering wheel. It was very disconcerting. I got up on the highway, got going. I was doing about 65, and I just felt this wobbling. And so I backed it way down to 50. It was still there, but I just felt like the tires were tracking a little bit on these rain grooves. I just didn't feel comfortable with it. So I wanted a tire that did not have that symmetrical rain groove around the center of the tire. So I went with the Angel GTs. Now, here's a couple of funny things about all of that. One, Pirelli as a tire manufacturer, I don't know if people know that, but they first incorporated and came out in 1872. So they've been doing tires for a long, long, long time. Obviously, it's an Italian company. But here back in I think the late 80s, 90s, they were doing, they were branding a little differently. They had shoes, they had clothes, they had hats, they had a lot of other things. Well, they got rid of that. So Pirelli today only manufactures tires. That's all they do, whether it's car tires or motorcycle tires. That's all they do. And they manufacture around the world. There's a lot of different rubber, the tire making sites around the world. However, this is straight from their website. Pirelli only manufactures motorcycle tires in two places, only two, Germany and Brazil. Those are the two places that they manufacture Pirelli tires. Nowhere else. I thought that was kind of unique, different. And then the second part of that is, again, from their website, 45% of Pirelli as a company, 45% of it is owned by a group called Chem China. So 45% of Pirelli is owned by another company, Chem China, and that might explain why the head of the Pirelli company, their CEO, whatever, he's a Chinese businessman, and the second guy in line is an Italian. So, it kind of puts a different, we are in a global world and in a global economy, but a lot of that, there's a lot of different parts and pieces to all of that. And the other thing that I thought was, I saw a video where they were actually looking at, I think BMW comes out with Pirelli tires, stock. So everybody's all excited about the Pirelli tires, but what you learn from that is that those Pirelli tires I think it's the BMWs. I could be wrong on that, but those Pirelli tires are manufactured in Brazil. So it gets to that production cost point, right? So a motorcycle company goes to Pirelli and say, can you make us tires, but we need the price to be within this range? And Pirelli says, yep, no problems, we can do that. So what do? They ship their manufacturing over to the Brazil plant. Not saying that they're better or worse tires. I'm just saying that that's where those tires are made. And there's codes on the tire that give you that information. But I'm just saying that Pirelli only makes motorcycle tires in two places, Brazil and Germany.
Well, Alan, final question. When should you look at getting new tires for your bike?
That's a good question. Obviously, for me, I've only got, about, I don't know, 1,600 miles on mine this year. Didn't put a lot of miles on it. But because of that little bit of a wobble that I had down the highway, I wasn't comfortable with that. And I wanted to go with some different tires. Wasn't happy with the stock ones. Obviously, other people will disagree with that and say they're going to run them out and get 7, 8, 9, 10,000 miles out of them. They'll get them down to where they're wore out. That's fine. But when you get to that point, understand that the owner's manual tells you that the depth on those tires should be 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters, nothing less than that. There are wear bars on them, so when you're getting them down pretty low, it's time to start thinking about new tires. Or depending on how it was stored, depending on how it was ridden, a lot of different things, check your tires. You could have cracks, you could have blisters, you could have other malformations of the tire. It could be running out of round. It could be scalloped for a lot of different reasons. So when those type of things start happening to your tires, weather checking is another thing that happens. Tires over time lose some of the compounding internally. They start weather checking. That's when you replace the tire. And having ahead of time a forethought of what kind of tires you want will help in that decision. There's a gazillion tires out there. I would strongly recommend that you go with the stock size, and also know that not all manufacturers of motorcycle tires make all sizes. There are some that just don't make the size that the Vulcan S came stock with, the 120, 70, 18s, or the 160, 60, 17s on the back. Some manufacturers don't have those sizes. They make them a little bigger, maybe a little smaller, but I would recommend going with the same. So geometrically they're the same. Your bike will ride. And when you talk about getting the new tires, when you first get them, there's a period of time, even whether it's a new motorcycle and you have new tires on it, or you just put new tires on your motorcycle, understand that there's a 50 to 100 mile, if you will, break-in. It's really not a break-in per se, but what you want to do is scuff the tires up a little bit so you get the maximum amount of traction on those tires. So the first 50 to 100 miles, what does that equate to? That's like 80 to 160 kilometers. Just take it easy. Ride as the dealer or the owner's manual, ride conservatively, quote unquote, where you watch how fast you take off from lines. You watch your braking. You give yourself plenty of distance. You watch your cornering, because the tires need to scuff in a little bit so that you get maximum traction. They won't give you maximum traction up front. And I want to dispel one rumor or one old thing. Back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, when they were molding tires, they would put a release agent on the molds so that when the tire was manufactured, it would pop out of the molds. Otherwise, it would stick. So there was some of that. They thought, oh, the tires are slick. In today's world, because of the technology and the rest of it, that's not true. And what you need to understand is that even like the new tires that I have, they are very slick along the outside, very slick. And that's because the molds are very good. They inject the rubber and the silica in there, and when they release the pressure off, they pop right out of the molds. So there is no release agent per se on the tires. And one thing I wanted to add about the Pirellis, let's see, they have it straight on their manufacturing site. The Angel GT tires are of a rayon-based construction that works with dual compound in the rear, single compound in the front, and are 100% silica for excellent wet weather and dry grip from the shoulder up. So on the Pirellis along that shoulder area, they're 100% silica, and they have what they call a cap and base technology. I guess that's how they tie the rayon into the steel belting and that second compounding. And most reviewers that I've seen will tell you that the Pirelli Angel GTs give excellent mileage, as good or better than the stock tires, and they have excellent grip in the corners and in wet conditions because of the way they've come up with this cap. What did I say? It was cap and base technology of how they actually designed the tire. So there you go. And go ahead.
No, well, I was just going to mention about the codes on the tires, whether you wanted to discuss that or not.
Yeah, and I'll try and keep this short. I know we've been running over a little bit. If you look at your tires, and you're buying new tires, on the sides of the tire, molded in there, and those are by regulations, there's going to be lots of different numbers in there. One lettering thing will be, you'll get a DOT, a Department of Transportation. That's required by the United States on all of their tires to be sold here. It'll give you a DOT number, and that refers to regulations and other stuff, requirements of that tire. There's also an EU number on there that the European Union has decided that they need to put on there. But also on the side of that tire, you'll have obviously the size. You'll get, for example, on these Pirellis, it'll say 170, 70, 18, 59W on the front. And what that refers to is the size, obviously the 120, 70, 18. The 59 is the weight carrying capacity at 42 pounds of pressure. So if you air them up completely, you'll be able to carry about 536 pounds on that tire. Is that going to give you the best ride? Probably not. That's why they tell you to kind of run them at around 32 to 34 psi. But the W is the speed rating, and the W relates to the tire manufacturers and what they're all regulated to give you. A W relates to 168 miles an hour or 270 kilometers per hour. So way overkill for the Vulcan S. So the stock tires are only rated at H, an H rating, which is 130 mile an hour, 210 kilometers per hour. So obviously the Pirelli tires are good for a lot higher speeds, although the Vulcan S will never reach that speed. And getting to the actual date code on that front tire, which you'll see, there's an R number, an R172, and then next to that will be 4 digits, and those 4 digits will dictate what the date code is. On my front tire for that Pirelli GT, Angel GT, it was 2419, and what that refers to is the 24th week of 2019. That's the date code. So that tells you that was basically the second week of June 2019 when that tire was manufactured. So that's the born on date, and the tire weighs about 10 pounds. So I've also been told that the Pirelli tires are lighter than stock tires. Don't know that. I have no way of confirming that. I weighed them just because. On the rear tire, it'll show you 160, 60, 17, which again is the size. Gives you all of the same parameters, the dot numbers and everything. But the date code on that will be, on my particular tire, is 1319, which means it was manufactured 13th week of 2019, which is the last week of March of 2019. Same weight carrying capability as the stock tire 69, but again, the speed rating is a W versus the H on the stock tire. So the Pirelli tires, from a weight carrying standpoint, are the same as stock. From a speed standpoint, can take a lot more sustained speed, even though the Vulcan S will never get to that speed. I think most people are seeing about maybe 110, 115 miles an hour on a Vulcan S. That's max speed, and that's for me. That's plenty fast enough. There's no need for me to go that speed. Now, John kind of laughed about his old KZ. He'd push it 150, 180 kilometers an hour back in the day. My old Kawasaki, I took up over 100 miles an hour several times. But in today's world, my age, I don't need to do that. I've already proven my worth, whatever all that is. But that's one of the things also when you're buying the tires, what your final use is going to be, and how much money you want to spend, and all of those things. But anyway, so hopefully that gives everybody the information that they need when buying new tires, from pressure ratings to date codes. And you might ask the question on those date codes, when is a tire out of date? And the simple answer to that is if the tire has been stored correctly, a brand new tire, in a nice temperature controlled storage or building or whatever, they can last upwards 6 years. They have a very long storage life. If you're talking about a warehouse where the conditions change from 1 month to the next, where let's say you live in an area where you get cold and then you get hot, and so the storage building where the tires are being stored is variable. The tires can last a year or two in that condition. So again, that's where the date code becomes pretty important. If you find a good deal on tires, $200 front and rear, but the date code's telling you they were produced back in 2010, I'd be real leery of those tires. That means those tires are 10 years old, and they may look good, but they may not stand up very long on the bike. That's just my last bit of information.
Well, thanks very much, Alan, for all your information and for the comments that you've made.
No, thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. It's the same, I'm just trying to help people out with information. That's it.
If you who are watching this video would like Alan to discuss any particular subject about the Vulcan S, leave a comment under the video, and Alan and I will look into it. See you, mate.
See ya. Take care of yourself. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching my video. If you enjoy my videos, subscribe to the channel. The Quacker John Vulcan S show is on every Friday night at 10 PM Brisbane, Australia time. You are most welcome to join in. You are most welcome to join the Quacker John chat room, and the link for your invitation to join the chat room is in the comments under the video. I have published a book called My Kawasaki Vulcan SE Adventures, and it is available on the Amazon website. See ya!